I'm telling you, you got to do that Cheech and Chong class. Shut up. Grab one of them.
Batteries.
Get the old Dean Martin thing out there with a cord on it.
Okay, wow, this is going to be fun. Got me? Excellent. Okay, so what are some of the things you guys discussed around your tables over here? What were some of the things you said a guard part looks like?
Cellular permeated membrane.
Cellular membrane. Awesome. We got to the biological part of it. That's awesome.
What do you say?
Cellular permeated membrane. Yes.
Yeah, right. Why don't they explain that one?
They did in biology class. So what are some other things? Anybody? A clear one? Okay.
We discussed a couple things. One was that someone that doesn't quite know how to guard their heart can put up so many boundaries that they don't know how to engage anyone.
So you can over-guard your heart to a degree. Yeah.
And then someone who does know how to guard their heart can be a person who's very upfront with you and is able to establish those boundaries vocally and state to them to guard their heart.
So a guard heart can usually be something like a swinging gate versus a brick wall. Good point. Anyone else? What about you guys up there?
A guarded heart is a heart that not only has a swinging gate, but it's discerning. It has very clear pathways to know what exactly is right and wrong.
So strategic.
Yes.
Good. Go ahead.
We talked about how by your belief you become changed. So like guarding your heart by like being careful with what you expose yourself to.
What you expose yourself to. Good.
We thought it was something about trusting in the Bible and
Trusting in the Bible?
Yeah, I mean, reading it all the time or
Okay. Anything here? Make sure I don't pull this mic off. Just so you know, I'm used to working with a wireless head mic analyst, so this is really weird for me. But I want to kind of show you, give you an idea here. Our hearts, also part of our minds, are a lot like this glass here. They're an open vessel. You can put anything you want into it. You can put mother's milk. You can put poison. Your mind really doesn't give a care. This glass doesn't care what you put in it. It doesn't judge. It doesn't try to figure it out. It just takes whatever you put into it. And as we're out in the world, we have a lot of things that come our way, a lot of negative inputs. You see, there's a ton of it out there. And it's a lot like this dirty water here. And so as we're going through our life, no matter what time in our life we're at, there's always things that are trying to pour into our minds and filling them up with this dirty water. And you see, just like this glass, our minds are full of stuff that's clouded. And this is how we view our world. This is how we interpret everything that goes around us. Because everything is colored through what we've had inputted into our minds. This is where it makes it difficult to trust God. This is where it makes it difficult to trust our friends, to believe in anything good and pure. And this is constant bombardment between media, between the books that we read, the music we listen to, all these inputs, what we see, hear, and watch, are always having some kind of adverse effect, putting dirty water into our minds or in this cup. And the only way to correct this is to go out and find clean, pure water. Good things. Paul told us We need to define things that were pure, good, lovely, and to think of those things. And we have to fill up our minds with that and just keep pouring it until it starts to overflow. And if we keep pouring this good, clean water into this dirty cup, eventually we get a clean cup.
Good example.
Or in this case, a clean mind. But see, we're going to have to go out and we're going to have to seek good, clear things to put in our minds. Because the dirty stuff, this stuff here will be a path to your door. It will gladly, more than happily, make its way to you. The clean water, that's difficult to find. And if you've ever been out in the wilderness, sometimes getting the good, clean stuff, that's not as easy. You can find polluted stuff pretty quickly. See, our minds are like a machine or a computer. What you put in is what you get out. Garbage in, garbage out. I don't know if you've ever heard that saying before. So what we do throughout the day, whether it be what we're reading, what we're watching, or what we're listening to, it all has some kind of effect on us, good or bad. And what we've got to do is make sure that we're being more mindful about what we put in our minds than what we put in our bodies. I don't want you to eat healthy. I mean, who here doesn't really think that eating healthy is a good thing? But I'm telling you, what's more important is what you put in your mind. Because out of your mind, that's what creates who you are. That's how you interpret everything around you. And if that's faulty, then your thoughts are faulty. We need to feed our minds good stuff. Because by feeding our minds good stuff, that we can have a positive outlook. We can face our days with more enthusiasm, with more courage. See, for me, growing up, one of the things that I really struggled with was this being able to actually have a positive thinking. To me, positive thinking was really just about having this fluffy, irrational viewpoint of life. Because I thought that, everything bad happens, and that's what's more important. Because growing up, I don't know if any of you can relate, but we used to have to work on vehicles, and I think they're just designed to break down. I discovered this. I mean, I haven't found one that
all the time.
Break down. I think they really go in when they manufacture and go, you know what, we want this to break down and go 10,000 miles.
Yeah.
And anytime that happened, my dad would just get livid. And he'd be like, why me? Why is this happening? This always happens. It doesn't matter how many times we fix this, there's always some kind of problem. And that's kind of how I started to learn how to interpret my life. Because of what I was hearing and what I was seeing. I also learned, unfortunately, about relationships from my parents. And I know some of us grew up in great homes. Some of us came from homes like I did where the things that you heard your parents talk about was not what a loved couple should ever say to themselves. And I started to doubt whether or not love was something that was real. What made it worse was that I started to doubt whether or not God actually loved me. Because my parents didn't love each other, then what was this junk God was telling me? Because I knew at some point something was going to happen and God was going to go, you just don't measure up. Because my mind was clouded by all this negative stuff that was causing it difficult for me to actually see my world. Paul, he talked about this because, see, the church of Philippi was having a really difficult time understanding stuff. They were getting involved in things that just was not good for them. And he ends his letter to them by telling, hey, whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever's right, pure, lovely, admirable, whatever is excellent and praiseworthy, think on these things. But you can't think on stuff like that if that's not what you're putting into your mind. If it's not what you're exposing yourself to. All of us have ever seen something or heard something or listened to something that we regret later. For me, one of the worst inputs that I ever found was pornography. And I'm telling you, that stuff messes up your head. It's like an image that you cannot get out. And it's always there. It's always there. So I'm constantly having to go out and find good, clean water and keep pouring it in, pouring it in, pouring it in. Otherwise, that other stuff, it's easy. I mean, this day and age, you can find anything to pollute your mind with in a matter of a couple of clicks. And it's not just sitting at home in front of the computer. It's on our smartphones. It's on our tablets. It's everywhere. A lot of people are going to tell you that what you watch and what you listen to and what you read doesn't matter. And I'm here to tell you that it does matter. Think about this. Have you ever had some really great upbeat music playing while you're driving? What do? You sing. What happens to the throttle? You try to find out if it can actually go through the floor. Because what we listen to affects us in some way. Or have you ever been listening to something that's really sad and all of a sudden you find yourself kind of depressed?
Yeah.
Or better yet, have you ever read something? Have you ever read a book where it has some kind of either love scene or some kind of dilemma and you can feel your heart start to race? You ever watch a movie and it makes you want to go out and do something, whether it be good or bad? I mean, you watch, a lot of people I've heard watch a lot of horror movies, and I'm thinking, do you not understand what that's doing to your brain? Because here's the thing, I was actually reading a study on what we read and what we watch, and what they said is that your brain actually doesn't understand the difference between fantasy and reality. Our brains don't process things that way. They process everything through reality, either through an experience you had or somebody you know has. That's how your brain processes it. So one of the things they did was they would put people into this MRI machine, and they'd have them read these stories. And they'd have something like, maybe the story where a person breaks their arm. Okay. And the MRI would actually, in the area of your brain that would register that arm of yours actually being broken, would light up. Because your brain processes it and says, this is real. And so the more you expose yourself to that kind of stuff, the more your brain tells you this is how reality is. It matters what we watch. It matters what we listen to. And it matters what we read. But I don't want you guys to get the idea that I'm saying, okay, don't go to the movies, don't watch TV. The only music you can listen to is ktSY. Only read good Christian books. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is we need to be more intentional about what we're putting into our minds. Because we need to feed our minds good stuff. Because if all we're putting in our minds is negative stuff, or if the majority of it is negative, then that's our outlook. That's the way we view our entire world. So what do? Well, for me, what I've learned to start doing is whether I'm watching something, listening to something, or reading something, I want to ask myself these 3 questions. That is, 1, what is it telling me about the world I live in? Because to make no mistake, whatever you watch, whatever you listen to, and whatever you read is telling you something about the world you're living in. Good or bad, right or wrong, it's telling you some information about it. And you need to ask yourself, what is this saying? Don't be blindly going in and watching or reading or listening to something and not thinking that, hey, this is trying to tell me how to view my world. Secondly, what is it telling me about me? See, what you listen to, what you watch, and what you read is telling you something about you. Whether who you are, your value, or who you should be, it is telling you how to be you. And thirdly, it's telling you something about God. So you have to ask yourself, what is this telling me about God? Is this telling me that I have a loving God? Is this telling me that there is no God? What is this saying? Because there's a message coming through. And if we're more intentional and more aware, then we'll be able to filter those things out. And we'll actually start to think about seeking good, clean water so that our minds, are clear. So, if you get anything out of this, I want you to remember that you need to be intentional about feeding your mind good stuff. Because it's from out of your mind and your heart comes all these things that we don't want. These evils, these confrontations where we feel that we're not connecting with people. Or just that funk, like Eeyore having that cloud over our heads. Maybe Eeyore should have read a few more motivational things. For me, that's one of the things I like to do. I've become an avid podcast listener. Do whatever it takes for you. You find out. One of the things I want to also mention is that some of the negative input can be your friends. See, your life is more important than the gossiping friend you have. If they're putting negative stuff into your life, it's probably a good thing to not be their friend. Because what you have and who you are is how God's going to impact the world. And if it's being corrupted by those around you, you're only half the person He wants you to be. So make a choice. Feed your mind good stuff.
All right.
Dear God, you know, I'm thankful for all the good things You do put out in this world. The things of beauty, whether it be in nature or in stories or even movies. You've got something to say to everything around us. Help us to be more aware of that. Help us to be more aware of the stuff that's drawing us away from You or making it so that we can't see You. Help us to have clear, clean minds and to continue pouring that into our lives.